All right. So data certification, why is it important? Michael went over this, but I think it's worth repeating. In simple terms, it's the Air Pollution Control Officer stating to EPA and ARB that the data is completely submitted into the EPA database and that the data is accurate to the best of his or her knowledge. It's important also because it's required by EPA, and the requirements are located in 40 CFR 58.15. In the funding area, my district includes data certification as one of its 105 grant objectives. So this is part of our application and justification for 105 grant funding each year. Data certification is also specifically mentioned in our roles and responsibilities agreement with ARB. And it's also important because NAAQS determinations and design values are based on this data, and certification is the agency taking responsibility for the accuracy of this data. So with the ongoing work, there are 2 reports that our local district reviews a couple times per year. And this helps the final data certification process go more smoothly. So we review the AMP 256 and the AMP 430 reports. And we do this in July and January. We just kind of split the year in half. And I'm keeping in mind that the data certification deadline is May 1st. Ideally, we want no surprises requiring extra work that as we are approaching our data certification deadline. The time's not significant, is insignificant to review these 2 reports. It probably takes us just less than an hour. The AMP 256, it consists of 6 sub-reports, and data in these reports is entered by either the local district, ARB, or EPA. The district enters data for the 1-point quality control report, that's the precision data, and also the flow rate verification report, which is for particulates. ARB enters data for the annual performance evaluations, the semi-annual flow rate audits, and the co-location summary. And then EPA enters data for the PEP audits. The important thing to keep in mind on the other reports where ARB and EPA are entering the data is that is the need to communicate with them well in advance if questions arise. It may take time for them to figure out a problem or repair it, and so you just don't want to wait until the last minute, possibly jeopardizing your data certification deadline. When everything looks good in the AMP 256, then you're going to have fewer problems than the AMP 600, and that's one of the main reports that's submitted for the final certification package. This is an example of a precision data subreport. The box outlined in red shows a required and actual number of precision points, and then also the percent completeness. So our agency, does precision checks every week, and so and sometimes even more often if we have diagnostic work, and so we easily meet this requirement every year. In the AMP 430, that's the data completeness report, we review the monthly percentage completeness numbers and the year-to-date percent. This is just a quick way to check the ongoing monthly data completeness. And this is a page from our AMP 430. So as a QA reviewer, investigating a low percent completeness for a month can help identify problems such as monitors that have not been closed or incorrect method codes. So outlined in red here is an ozone monitor for one of our sites. And for this monitor, if you can work your way down the row to July, you'll see the 78% completeness for this month. And that's a bit low for our, lower than normal for our agency. So this is just an example where a QA person might want to investigate further. Now, in this case, I know that we had a multi-day power failure at this site. It was in July. And so as a QA reviewer, if you're in a small agency, you already know this happened, then I wouldn't bother to investigate further. I'd just move on. And again, the annual certification requirements, Michael went over them. Basically, it's just 2 reports and a formal letter. The AMP 450 NC is part of our final data certification package. And so we give it a close look 1 to 2 months before the final certification deadline. We review the 450 NC mostly for the number of observations that are shown. The report, it does not give observation completeness in percent, so we just do a simple calculation. My agency uses 90% as a point where we would take a closer look at a particular monitor. 90% was chosen somewhat arbitrarily, but mostly because we are almost always above this when our monitors are operating normally. So for hourly sampling, if the annual number of observations is less than 7,884, that's 90%, then we'll go in and try to take a closer look and just see if something has been missed or if we got an incorrect method code in there. And then also on this report, it's worth taking just a quick look at the maximum values for the concentration numbers just to make sure that they look reasonable. This is an example of our AMP 450 quick look report. And outlined in red here is an ozone monitor for one of our sites. And again, on the left side of the red box, if you can note the number obs column. And so here a quick check shows 8,740, and that's just nearly 100%, so for the year. And then next, as a review, I just take a quick look across at the numbers, and we're looking at 80-something and 60, 60, 60. So for our area, we know that those are all reasonable numbers for our ozone, so then no further review on that row, I would just move on. The AMP 600, that's another part of the final data certification package, and so like the AMP 450, we give it a close look 1 to 2 months before the final certification deadline. It contains the statistics and for ambient quality assurance data. And so when the ongoing work reviewing the AMP 256 and the 430 reports is taken care of, this report should be in pretty good shape for the final sign-off. Sorry, guys, forgot to move the slide. This is a page from our 2013 AMP 600 report. So the upper portion shows a co-location summary, and you can see that there are some red or no flags where the criteria is not met. And then underlined in red, the lower portion shows the monitor summaries, and this is where the co-location deficiencies from above are reflected in the monitors at specific sites. I don't have a pointer, so I can't really point out, but down below under the monitor summaries, if you go about 4 rows, if you look at the method code 170, it's for PM 2.5, and there is a red no flag for the PQAO criteria met. So that red flag then is going to lead to a red flag for the AQS recommendation. Yeah, sorry. So now as a local district without control over the co-location criteria, if you look over the second column from the far right, we've already, of course, this is already a completed report, and so we've recommended a yes flag for our comment. And then keep in mind, though, that co-location is determined at the PQAO level. And so we understand as a local district and working with ARB, we understand the challenge to meet these requirements. And so, however, as a local district, it is a responsibility of our agency to justify a yes flag when we know the data is good, and it's just part of our data certification process. The review process for at the district level for concurrence flags just involves a couple of steps. The district needs to determine the status for the no flag. So, for example, was it a co-location or a data completeness issue? And then second, can reasons against certification be corrected or justified? A co-location issue may justify a yes flag, as was the case with our 2013 report, or perhaps if it's a completeness issue, that can be repaired. Justifying comments can be brief and to the point. Data considered complete and accurate works for many situations. Okay, we're rolling into the home stretch here. Okay, so this is a screenshot from the actual query form where the district would request a different flag from the AQS recommendation, and then also where they enter the comment. What I have circled in red here is a column that's been filled out, but normally as a data QA person, you'd go in there and that would be blank, and then you just go in and add your recommendation for a yes flag and your comment over to the right. And the final piece to the certification required is just our formal letter. This is just a copy of our letter from last year. There are some proposed changes to 40 CFR 58 that will substantially reduce the review and workload process for local districts. In the future, it appears that the non-criteria pollutants will no longer be required. And if this happens, the data certification review will be much simpler. For example, in the 430 data completeness report, if we no longer have meteorology or PAMs, then there will be many fewer monitors to check. For data certification information, the AQS RSS feed is our main go-to place. So it works well because all past messages and implemented patches can be reviewed in one place, and then they also respond to questions in this feed. Okay, so the bottom line on data certification is, if your data is complete and accurate to the best of your knowledge, then you should certify it. And that's it. Questions if there's time?
This question is probably more for EPA than you, Mallory.
Okay.
But I have suggested in the past that because data certification, a lot of the issues for at least the ARB PKO ties to co-location. And I was wondering, could we remove co-location from the data certification process? And because co-location deals with the network issue and not the data per se. And I don't know if we have a good answer from EPA on that yet, but that's what I suggested in the past, that separate the co-location requirement from the data certification process, and I'd like to have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a little difficult because it is one of the QC criteria, and I kind of understand what you're saying in terms of the number of sites, you know, maybe on a PQAO level, the number of sites, but really it's an assessment of precision on the PQAO level. For PM2.5, that's how we do precision. So taking it out of the report, I don't think that we would do that. You know, just because it is one of those critical criteria.
What I'm suggesting is not take it out of the report, but do it separately. Do the co-location assessment separately, away from the data certification process.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean that is a way to do it. I think, like I said in a few minutes ago, is that the purpose or what the certification report was envisioned to be was a you know, one-stop shop for all your QA/QC for the PQAO for the 3-year period and directly tied to the DQOs. And if we take it out of the report, then that just kind of conflicts with that objective. But yeah, we can take that back.
I'd like to point out a couple things about this graph. This is 2013 data, a report, and I want just to highlight these numbers are nowhere near close to what they are today. In fact, method 145 in our PQAO, ARB PQAO, is probably close to, Patrick, I'm thinking 30 sites now. Whereas method 117, I believe, is 8. Method 118 is now 8 sites. And the reason is when we went back and did a full assessment, we recognized that when you change the cut point head on some of these samplers, it moved it from method 118 to method 145. And then we have situations like this where one agency bought a different type of sampler than what's operated throughout our network. Combine that with the fact that some agencies are moving to method 170s and they're shutting down instruments. The point of all this is, as a PQAO, we're the only PQAO that has multiple methods that we have to deal with. And Fang and I are, every year we're battling, trying to hit a moving target. And what we're asking is, if you are changing your networks or the samplers or updating your samplers, be in close communication with either Patrick or myself or Gail and Fang, so that we can make sure that we don't have these no's anymore. We really want to change this to where we are meeting our precision requirements. Today, we're really close. For method 170, I believe we are either 1 or 2 sites away from, and that's an FEM, so we have to co-locate with an FEM. We're really close. We meet it for method 117 and 118 right now, and we're striving for method 145. I believe by the end of the, within the next few months, we're not going to have very many method 145s left. But as we said, we want to get away from these red boxes, and hopefully we can do that within the next few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think what it really does, I think what this really does highlight is that, this really brings to the forefront that, everyone in this PQAO is linked together. That a precision check or a co-located value in Imperial County affects the PQAO co-location and affects the precision data for, Yolo Solano County. In that, everything that we do in terms of aggregating this data is really taking all of the precision and accuracy data for the entire PQAO, so that your individual checks or your individual co-located measurement all gets fed into this. And that, just, bringing awareness that, when you're in a PQAO like CARB, that, what you're doing at your station, is not isolated, and that it does bring it into this larger context, which is, I think an important thing to keep in mind.
And then these red flags here are at the site level, and we can easily, this is on my team with regards to the actual audits. And if there's a no there, it's typically because we didn't meet the criteria of conducting a flow audit within the required time frame of 5 to 7 months. And that's a short time period, and if we go out there and the sampler's down and we miss it, we have nothing. And that's where we use that flag that you say, we change it to a yes, saying, to the best of our knowledge, this is complete and accurate data. This QAP, you saw in an earlier presentation, we're in the process of updating that because our QAP is out of date, and because of that, we are able to change that from a no to a yes. The same thing what Mallory described earlier. Any other questions?
Mallory, you mentioned that meteorological data will not be certified in the future?
Yes, on the 450 NC, non-criteria pollutants will no longer have to be part of that package.
Oh, just not the MET, just the non...
Well, MET and in our case, PAMs as well. And so they generate, all the PAMs compounds generate a bunch of records. And so if we don't have to review those records, it's going to save us a lot of time in reviewing.
Okay, so just for PAM sites.
PAMs and meteorology as well.
Why would you want to not certify meteorology?
Well, EPA requests, when we do the 450, we do the 450 NC and then all. And so it brings in everything. And perhaps Gail could speak to this a little bit more closely. Yeah. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I think that this is a change that is in the process of being made, and I think the intention was to alleviate some of the burden that we have been hearing from our state and locals on, producing these reports and reviewing all this data. And so all non-criteria parameters, which include MET and PAMs and toxics and all of those types of parameters, don't have to be certified as part of this process. Now, that's not to say that you don't certify and verify and validate your own meteorological data. It's just that EPA is trying to respond to some criticism that this is becoming overly burdensome with the non-criteria pollutants being included in this way. So
You still have policies and procedures in place identified in your quality management plan as for each agency to validate that data. What they've eliminated, and that's an update that's coming, is you just don't have to go through the certification process.
Yeah, and while met data is not required to be certified, it is good to certify as an agency because it's useful for other people might have use for it, like modeling or research, etc. So it's up to your agency to want to certify metadata or not, but for the ARB data, we do certify it just for that purpose, that if anyone should question our metadata, we say yes, it's to the best of our knowledge, is good for research purposes, etc.
All right, I think we're ready to move on. Let's give them a round of applause.